Hi, I'm Robin Madrich, and welcome to my podcast, I'd Like My Crayons Back, a podcast about creativity in all its forms. And speaking of creativity, we have Lauren Gilbert tonight. Hold on one second. And there she is. Hi, Lauren. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Okay, we're going to start with something you told me, which was that you consider yourself a professional hobbyist. Do you want to explain what that is, actually?
I say that because I feel like I do a little bit of a lot of things and no single thing in particular. And I get to a certain point with it, but I never take it like all the way. I never go like to jack of all trades, master of none. And the professional part is I try to sell what I make because
Right, right.
it's difficult to fund the fun stuff if you don't make a few sales here and there.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. And yeah, I do a bit of that myself because I just posted something about how crafters, I don't know, something about a crafter having a room full of stuff that they promise they'll use one day.
Yeah, exactly that.
So you have done like many things. Like you, I know, have done resin work, correct?
Yes.
I'm going to show a quick video and then maybe you can explain what some of those things are. Okay. Hold
Mm-hmm.
on one second. Let's hope this works. Wait. I'll probably cut this part out. No, we can't. We're going to go to a slide. I can
Well,
cut this out. I
yeah,
can cut this out.
yeah.
Yeah, but we're gonna go to a slide instead because I don't have a video.
And if you cut it right, people will just think you went to the slide.
Yes, yes. Okay. So now we have these slides here. This is all made from resin. What is this exactly?
This is a small jar with a lid. I used several different powders and pigments in order to get that kind of crackly effect.
Yeah, I
And
love that.
yeah,
I love that. And it could be used like for rings, right? It's small,
for
a small
rings,
thing.
it's not big enough for a candle, really. You can't put a tea light in it, but you can put like rings or maybe a necklace or something like that.
Okay. And uh, these I love. They're beautiful.
Yeah,
They're
these are my Lotus candle holders. I love making these. They always tend to come out nicely.
yeah,
Um,
they're gorgeous. There's another one right there.
yeah, that was my first one. I was very excited about that one.
Are there flowers in there? Real
There are real
flowers?
flowers in there. You kind of stuff them in there, and then you pour the resin in, and it all hardens into one thing.
Okay. And I know you do some Christmas items. My
Yeah, I
favorite.
do Christmas ornaments. This one is a two-step process. I did that glittery part first, and then I did the outer part second. The way
Mhm.
resin works is you mix liquids together, two chemicals together, and they cure over time and harden. And it takes about 24 to 48 hours to harden. So doing an ornament like this actually takes 2 to 3 days
Wow.
in order to finish because you have to wait for each layer to dry a certain amount.
Now, what got you started with resin?
I just thought it looked cool.
It does.
It looked neat. It looked like alchemy. Like you put these two chemicals together and you have a thing at the end that you can show off, and it always looks really professional.
Right.
Especially once you get a pressure pot, which can take, because sometimes you get bubbles in resin. A pressure pot will take those bubbles out. So once you have that, you're really a professional hobbyist or a professional. So
Yeah, because I've seen some of, in fact, I have some of your the Christmas ornaments, and they are really
yes, you have a
really
problem.
beautiful. Yeah, I know. I can't help it. Christmas is my weakness. And so you also do artwork, correct?
Yes.
And now you do, I think digital, and you do oil painting. And I'm going to let me see. Let's see if this works this time. I believe I have a video. Ready?
Right.
Now, I don't want to rush you through all of this because I really am amazed by the things you paint and the things you. Is some of it considered illustrating, and some, or is it
I
all just
I just do it. I don't know if it's considered illustrating or not. That would be somebody else's label for it, I guess. I just pick up the paintbrush and do what I can. Or
yeah?
the
Because
pen,
it's
the digital pen.
right, right. Because some of I know I've done, uh, you know, digital artwork, where I do it on the computer, and then I also do paintings. Um, but you took lessons for a little while, I think.
I took a couple lessons, but they were interesting in the fact that they weren't instructional in like how to do it. Like the person told me, okay, these are the oil paints you need. You need a thinner. Like she told me those basic things, but mostly what he worked with me on was creativity and getting ideas out because I have a hard time with that and that whole process. And he also helps me by critiquing my work. So
Right,
I
right.
don't have any real formal training. I just kind of improvise as I go.
Okay. Well, I do have some slides of your artwork, and we're going to pop those up. And is this painting or is this digital?
This is digital. This
Okay.
one I remember doing because in my head I kind of understood how to do that tail, and that was why I wanted to paint the whole thing because I was like, that tail looks really cool, and I think I know how to do it. So I gave it a try, and it came out, I think, kind of cute.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I love squirrels. You know me.
They're so
Squirrels are
cute.
my thing. They are so cute. And mice, even though they're a pain in the butt. Um, and this is also digital?
Yes, it is. It's based on a stock photo. This is one of
Hmm.
my earlier ones and one of the earlier drafts. This is one of the ones that I had critiqued, and he helped me with learning how to make the folds of the fabric better and so on. So this would be like in the middle of the process.
Okay. And just for those who may be listening but not seeing this, this is a picture of a little girl in a little dark-haired girl outside in a green coat. And is she chasing a bubble? Is that what that is?
That is a bubble.
Yeah. And it's really good because you can see it reflects everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it seems like it's complicated, but really you just use a little bit of pink and a little bit of green, and somehow it just looks right. So
Really? That's really
yeah, a
neat.
little bit of pink, a little bit of green, and what you do is you kind of invert things a little, and you want the bottom to look like the sky, and the top to look like the green.
Right, right, like you would in a bubble. I guess.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that is
No,
really neat.
I was pretty excited with how that turned out too. I mean,
Yeah.
most of this is all just me experimenting, and that's kind of what you have to do.
Right,
You
right.
don't know how to do it, correctly or incorrectly until you try it.
Yeah, I remember doing it. I can't remember if it was oil or acrylic, but it was a vase of tulips. I was like, it's like, how do I make it look like they're in the water? And it took a few tries, but let's go the and this.
Yeah, I love this one. This one I did, I think, the same day as the squirrel. So they
Okay,
use a
yes,
similar
it's
palette.
yeah, and
Um,
it's so cute. And
yeah,
is it
I
a
had fun with this one.
chickadee? Is this a
Hmm?
chickadee?
I have no idea.
Okay, I think it is. Sorry.
It's. I got a stock photo and thought this is a cute little fluffy bird. I'll use this one.
Yeah, and it's so detailed because you see all the feathers without being like photographic. It doesn't look like a photograph, but you see all the shading and the feathers. I think it's really cute. All right, next we have a still life, which I can't
Yeah,
do at all.
I like doing them. I don't know. I if the composition's good, it's fun to do.
Yeah, I because I love all the colors and the light reflection and the shadows. It's excuse me one second. It's really it's really good. And it's is this digital as well?
This is digital. Yeah, I couldn't do this in oil painting at this point in time. I can do a lot more with digital right now than I can with, but that's because the tool is different, so it works totally differently. Like
Right.
some things carry over, but it's because you have the undo button. There's a lot more you can experiment with when you're working digitally.
Yes. Yeah. I find that too. In fact, that's like a saving grace because if I were to, do an entire book. It would take me 10 years. Like the H is for home. There's no way I could have done it otherwise. And then we have, this is also digital. I think I can tell.
Yeah.
Okay. And, okay, I think that's the last slide, is it?
Oh,
No. That's really nice. I like that.
Thank you. This is from a book of models that I have, and I thought she had one of the most interesting faces, so I have a few pictures of her.
Yes, like it's very angular. Like even her lips are angular. The whole thing. I really think it's really beautiful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, let me remove that. Okay, and then so I think you've done knitting, you said?
Yeah, I've done I can't do regular knitting. Regular knitting escapes me completely. Crocheting escapes me completely. But loom knitting, which uses either a round or elongated straight loom, I can do. It involves wrapping yarn around pegs and pulling them up and over, and it gets you a stitch like you would get with knitting. It's a lot more limited than regular knitting. You can't do all of the things that you can do with regular knitting, but it's still a lot of fun. And this would be an example of one of the hobbies that I have that I'm kind of light on. I'll do it every now and then, but it's definitely not like one that I'm super experienced with. That's not true. I was able to do cables once, but I couldn't do it now. If you had a
cables is a type of knit, is that what
like
that is?
when the yarn, not the yarn, when the stitches kind of cross over each other into that X.
Okay, like
I did that once. Together. It didn't come out that great, but I did do it once, and I was very proud of it.
Yeah, good. And then there was this.
Oh yeah, that was something I made for you after you had surgery. You needed something to cover up the surgery scar, and that was actually a test piece that I made. And I went up at about 6 o'clock in the morning, or whenever you were getting ready for work, and I held it up to ask you if you liked it so I could make a bigger one, and you just said, "Oh, thank God," grabbed it and went out the door.
It was perfect. It fit right, covered the scar right up. So you've done quite a bit. I mean, I know you make jewelry now, and that's seems to be your preference at this point. I mean, do you still paint though, or?
I tend to cycle. I get really into one thing, and then I burn out on it a little bit, and I move on to something else. And then there are some things that I come back to, like painting. I come back to beadwork. Yeah, definitely beadwork.
Okay. Well, I'm going to show the video of some of your beadwork, and then we will get into a deeper discussion. And okay, well, now some of that was like bigger beads, I think, and some look like wire work, but then a lot of it was that really intricate beading, and that seems to be your preference, or at least now.
There's several different sizes of beads, and the smallest one is 15-0, and then the next smallest that's typically used is 11, and I work with 11s for the most part. So not the smallest, but pretty close. Sometimes I'll work with the smaller ones, but not as much lately.
Okay, and you had problems for a while.
I did.
You did not.
I had neuropathy in my hands that made it difficult for me to feel what I was doing. I couldn't thread a needle, which would get so frustrating, or I would accidentally pull knots in it without realizing, or just drop beads. So for a long time, I just didn't bother with beads at all. And then, I got better recently, and my hands still have some numbness in them, but at this point, I can still mostly feel everything. So I can hold beads, and I can thread a needle, and I can do these things, which has been awesome. I've put in the last couple months, I've put well over 100 hours into beadwork. So
Wow, that's great. That's great. If hold on right now, I'm going to run a quick ad. Hold on. Okay, and we're back. Okay, I'm going to bring up some jewelry here. And that is you working on something?
I'm looking like I'm working on something.
And it looks like unfortunately I can't make it bigger, but it looks like beadwork at that.
Yes, that is a beaded star. I think I have a similar one here, or at least I did, and now it's gone. They're puffy little stars, and they're just really cute, and they're about 1.5 inches or so in size. And they take
that's tiny.
they take 6 hours to do. They're a pain.
Wow. Yeah. That's tiny. I don't think I could do that. All right, let's look at the next one. And this is an earring, one of two, I'm sure.
Yeah. Usually what I do is I'll make a bunch of single earrings because I hate making the same thing twice. So I'll have like a drawer or a box full of 5 or 6 different earrings that need a pair. So,
and eventually,
it's not that much fun to do the same thing over and over again. So I spread it out a little bit.
Right.
With this one, it uses a very common, like everything that I do mainly uses something called peyote stitch and sometimes herringbone stitch. And those are 2 of the earliest stitches you learn. Once you get good at them, this is something that's not that difficult to do. It's an intermediate kind of project, maybe beginner intermediate.
Okay. It looks more, for me, it would be like, I couldn't do it, but I'll take your word for the intermediate.
The trick is that it looks harder than it is.
Okay. Okay, and this is was that for a bracelet, the top one?
Yeah, that is my autism bracelet. I had a pattern that helped me figure out how to do those letters. The rest of it is totally improvised. I did not have a plan. I just kept adding beads to it until it looked the way I wanted it to. I was pretty excited with that one.
Yeah, it's pretty. I like it. It's cool. And how about underneath? Those are
pendants. They are about, I don't know, 3.5 inches long. So they're not small. And this one is also peyote. The letters in the top one is peyote. So it's the same stitch just coming up everywhere.
Okay. Let me see. I think we might have. There it is. That's the size, the full size of the.
Yeah, you can see it's a few inches long.
Yeah, it's very, very pretty, very pretty. And now it's different color on the inside.
Yes, it's 2-sided. It's got an outer color and an inner color, and it wraps around.
Wow. Okay, I'm doubly impressed then.
Yeah, this one, I mean, it's also peyote, but it's a lot more. It has a lot more tricks to it than the other one. So I will say this one is a little bit more challenging than some others. Especially when you close it up so that it's wrapped into one piece. It's a difficult closure, so it's not for everyone. So this one I would definitely say is probably more later intermediate kind of work.
Right. Because I remember working on jewelry, and I was just doing the stuff with just string beads, and like I could never. Wow. What is it when those little rings? Oh, the jump rings. I could never get those to work, and you're doing this.
Yeah, well, I mean, these jump rings don't twist open; they are solid, so I don't have to worry about it. But yeah, because when the jump rings are that tiny, they're very difficult to open and close. Yeah. because
Okay.
I was very excited by that pattern because, but it takes about, I would say, 5 or 6 hours to make one of those. So when I make a pair of earrings, it's an investment.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not sure. I mean, I think most people looking at it would realize, but I'm not sure that all people realize how much time you devote to making, a pair of earrings. And is this
Copper.
copper, and is it wrapping? It
Yeah,
looks
it's
like.
wire wrapping. It is, I made all of the links. I made all of the hook and everything else. The original thing that got me into not beadworking, but jewelry making was I was heading home from work in Philadelphia one day, and I stopped in the bookstore in there, and I was looking at their crafting books, and I saw one for working with wire jewelry, and I was like, not only am I going to get this book, but I'm actually going to buy the tools and do the thing instead of just buying the book. And I did. And this is one of the things that I made. And, eventually it led to me doing beadwork and everything else. So this was kind of my entryway into jewelry.
Yeah, it's impressive, all right. And I love the way it looks. There have been times when I thought, oh, I'd love to just, and I've watched YouTube videos and I thought, oh, I got to do that. But then when I actually think about it, I'm like, I can't. But you
have to do more than think about it, otherwise you don't know. Right. And that's why it was a big deal when I said I'm buying this book and I'm buying the supplies and I'm doing this, because you have to make that commitment.
Right. You know what I need to do is to run, because you have an Etsy site too, don't you?
Yeah, but right now I don't have a lot of things listed.
Okay. Well, do you want me to run it and then eventually?
Yeah, you should run it, and hopefully within the next couple of weeks I will have some stuff up.
Okay.
It's craft show season, so my store is not really up at the moment. All that's on there are a few of my paintings. So.
Okay. And I'm going to read this out loud just in case. It's HTTPS. It's, the whole thing. www.etsy.com/shop/Rampion Rampage Gifts. That's RAMPION RAMPAGGIFTS Gifts. And actually, where does that name come from?
Well, Rampion is the name of the lettuce in Rapunzel that the mother is craving and asks for from the witch's garden.
Oh,
it's called Rampion, and so that's that. It's from the weirdest place. I got the idea for it from Rocky and Bullwinkle. There is Fractured Fairy Tales where they make fun of fairy tales and they talk about Rampion, and that's where I got it from. So it literally came from Rocky and Bullwinkle. But I like fairy tales, and it was a username that I used, and I thought, I'll make a store called that.
I never.
But yeah, Rocky and Bullwinkle.
That's great. And actually, I'm going to keep that in mind, the fairy tale thing, because I want to ask you something later. But returning to jewelry, I really love all the colors you use. And like when you're out shopping for beads, what is it that you're looking for?
Well, if I go to Michael's, I'm looking for anything that matches, because it can be very difficult in store to get beads to match up color wise. But when I'm on online, which is the easiest place to buy beads, I'm usually looking for contrasting finishes. I like a lot of matte stuff to mix with shiny things. I like metallics. I have a tendency to use a lot of blues and silver. And yeah, I mostly work with 11/0s, as I said earlier, but I work in some larger sizes as needed. I lost track of where I was going.
We were talking about color and matte finishes.
And matte color. There are many, many different kinds of finishes. There are so many beads on the site, like it can take you a long time to go through and be like, I like that one. Well, maybe that one.
Now, where do you shop online when you're looking for beads?
I use firemountaingems.com. I also use Potomac Beads. I think it's potomacbeads.com. I use them more for one particular type of bead that they don't really have at Fire Mountain Gems. Super duos. They have they have they have twin beads, but they don't come in as many pretty colors. So I shop for Potomac from that.
Okay, and I think they used to have a store in Doylestown, didn't they? Potomac beads.
I think that was Potomac beads that used to be there. Yeah, I think so.
They're not there anymore.
That was an amazing store. That was a kid in a candy shop right there.
Yeah.
I've found a couple of new places since then. That there's one place about 20-30 minutes from here. Actually, I think it's near or in Bethlehem. So.
Do you remember the name of it?
Owl Beading. Owl, like the animal. OWL.
Like, okay,
Owl Beading.
Owl Beading?
Yes.
Okay. So everybody out there, if you're looking for beads in the Bethlehem area, Owl Beading.
Yes, and they do a lot of tutorials, and they do tutorials like classes, interactive classes, both online and in the store. So it's
that's neat.
Yeah. You can do it at home, or you can go to the store.
Wow. Okay. That's and now speaking of tutorials, I can't even imagine, but because it's so intricate, I don't even know how you. I couldn't fathom. I couldn't manage to like sit down there and make a pattern or whatever. But what inspired you to start making this type of jewelry, making beaded jewelry as opposed to, the wire wrapping or just.
The wire wrapping's fun, but the wire wrapping's also kind of boring because for a lot of it, you'll be twisting wires or you'll be coiling wires, and it can take a while, and then there's so much filing that you have to do to file all the points down, and I don't like that stuff. I find it boring. So, although I can sit there for 5 hours and beat a star, so I guess, boring is to each their own. For some reason I like working with the needle and thread, which is what you're using when you're making this stuff. I like the patterns. I use a lot of, like I said, I use a lot of stuff that's familiar to me. They all use peyote and herringbone. So all that's left for me to do is find a way to make it interesting.
Right. And now I've seen, I've actually seen the Fire Mountain Gem catalog, and sometimes they make like whole.
Yeah.
But now, are you able to do that, or have ever been interested in doing something like that?
A whole big thing. I mean, most of the time, like the really complicated ones, I think are bead embroidery, which isn't something I've done a whole lot of. I've thought about doing it, but what I always end up doing is going with simplicity. I just find it more enjoyable. The more complex it gets, the more likely you are to, really have an issue somewhere along the way. And I enjoy, professional hobbyist. I enjoy doing the thing. I'm not worried about necessarily coming up with the most complicated thing. I found my lane and I sort of coast.
Right. Well, why stress yourself out when you're really right?
I mean, it's supposed to be fun. Like if all you can do is stick figures, but you love doing stick figures, then do all the stick figures you want. There are, comic artists out there that make entire websites out of stick figure comics. So it's
it's what you like
half the time.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I'm looking at questions that I had prepared for you. Let me just see what else I have here. Oh yeah, that's something I wanted to ask about the materials. What type of materials and tools do you use? I know you just said something about needle and thread, but is there something you need to do with the thread to prepare it? Okay.
Well, the thread I use, you have to. I use something called Nymo, which is very thin thread. There's different sizes. I use I think I use the second to smallest, thinnest one. So you can wrap it in a bead. Because usually when you do bead weaving, you go through a bead multiple times in order to weave everything together. So you want your thread to be nice and thin, or else it won't be able to do that. You need to, with Nymo, you need to stretch it out to get all the pre-stretch it, and then you need to run it through wax, which helps it helps the beads glide on. It keeps it from tangling as much. It just makes life a lot easier.
Is it a special kind of wax? It's not like candle wax.
No, it's not candle wax. I'm not sure what it is exactly. I mean, I just buy beadwax, but okay. I just buy the products that they say is for it. So I'm not sure exactly what's in it, but it does the job.
Okay. How did you learn?
How did I learn? I learned from books. If I was now I learn from YouTube, but when I originally learned, I learned from books because this was, YouTube was in its infancy. Most people weren't doing the kind of stuff they are doing now. So I learned from I wish I remembered the name of it, but it was an everything beading book. It was taught you all the basic stitches, taught you all the tools of the trade and how to do all the little things. And then the book that I use often now is called Shaped Beadwork by Diane Fitzgerald. Those earrings that were kind of teardrop shaped with the blue bead in the middle, that's one of the shapes that's in that book. I use a lot of her patterns. And, that's the other thing. The patterns are instrumental because if they're not done well, and sometimes you don't know until the end that it was not done well and you'll make a lot of mistakes. So a good pattern that shows each step clearly or describes it clearly is critical.
Right. And it's got to be really frustrating if you get to the end and you're like, this isn't what it was
supposed
to be.
And the thread breaks. My favorite is when the thread breaks.
Oh, no. Oh, God. I'd be throwing the whole thing against the wall.
I've done it. I've done that. I've had things tangle. I've had things tear. I've had beads fall off. To get to the point that I'm at now, I did have to go through quite a bit of growing pains. It didn't just happen.
Quite a few tantrums. That would be me.
Yes, quite a few tears, and I'm never going to do this again. Oh. This is 6 hours, and it's ruined. Now I've gotten better to a point where some things I can fix, and other things you just kind of have to go, well, guess I'm going to do it again.
Right. Yeah. Oh dear. But the other thing I know, you used to sculpt. And I'm going to show, and that I remember when you got a book.
Katherine Dewey's Animals in Clay or something like that. She passed away this past year. She was an extremely gifted
her
sculptor.
It was beautiful. But I'm going to show a video of the sculptures that this was just when you started, and I was just floored. If I was like, I have to get that book, like that was going to make me be that good. No. I think this is it. Now that last thing, well, first let me back it up. I have the bird still sitting on my TV, but the frog and his expression, he's just like a very solid old man. I am.
Yeah, that whole thing, except for the last thing, is an ad for Katherine Dewey's book. All 4 of those are tutorials that she has. The book is incredible in how it breaks everything down. It really makes it so that you can reproduce what she's done. And to me, it's not important. It's nice to reproduce what somebody else has done, but it's also taking you through various steps to maybe figure out how to do it yourself so that you can do your own kind of thing.
Right. And that last piece, I think that was Red Riding Hood.
Yes.
Is that what that was? That's amazing. I don't know how you got that shine where it almost looked like glass.
I believe that's polyacrylic.
Oh, okay.
It's like Sculpey with some transparent Sculpey on it, and then I painted the Sculpey using pastel powders. using a paintbrush, and I just imprinted those colors into the translucent Sculpey so that it's not a solid color. That's why it has that like kind of translucence to it. And once I put the polyacrylic seal on it, it almost looks like glass.
Yes, it's amazing. And I like those little symbols, which I never noticed until I looked close up on that picture on the back of her cape. You know what I'm talking about, where it looks like there's a circle, and also the stitching and all that. That's just amazing.
Yeah, I'm really proud of that one. That was probably the first thing where I usually go into crafts just doing the craft, and I don't have an idea of where I'm going. I might be like, okay, I have these materials and these colors. I'm gonna do something with them. But usually, with the sculpting, with that one, I had this picture in my head, and I knew more or less what I wanted to do, and it came out pretty much how I wanted it to. I was very proud of that one.
There's a lot of like movement to it. How did you get her hair to?
Oh, the hair does that on its own for the most part. It's just very stiff.
Oh, okay, yeah, because
I think I dyed it. I think it was dyed that color. So
it's like it looks like, you know, between her cloak and her hair, like, and the way everything's wrapping around her, like the wind just caught her all of a sudden.
That was the idea. The idea was to get her in a moment. You know, she's dropped her basket, and you know she's in the woods, and the wind is blowing, and the idea that she's by herself, and you know it's not the happiest moment. You know, she's, you know, in a little bit of danger, but I just thought it was more interesting that way. I had another one which is Rapunzel, like little girl Rapunzel cowering from a witch in a tower. I'm not even sure where pictures of that are, but you know, you can see the cowering in the shapes. And then one that I had planned was Cinderella after she had fallen on the stairs, where you would see the shoe on the stairs and she was on the, you know, they're not having the time of their lives. Right. I don't know what it is about those moments in particular that interest me, but I just find them interesting, where, you know, something can turn.
Yes, and a lot more interesting than like if it was Cinderella, you know, walking down in her gown, and you know, but instead you're catching them all at vulnerable moments, which is actually really neat. I like that. And speaking of fairy tales and vulnerable moments, well, for one thing, you also write poetry, correct? But you also are working on, you don't have to give too much information, but you're working on it's a middle grade book. Is that what it is? Or
yeah, it's a chapter book. Well, I think it's more of a chapter book. It's intended for 8-year-old, 10-year-olds, probably more 8.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading that.
Yeah, I have some bits here and there that I've done. I'm still figuring out the voice of the main character, but you know, I've come up with a few ideas, like a pair of goats named Hemlock and Hazel.
That's cute. I like that.
So, you know, little things like that. I don't know what I'm going to do with Hemlock and Hazel, but I got the idea for them, so hopefully I'll find somewhere to fit them into the story.
Yeah, no, that would be, I like I said, I'm looking forward to it. And this is what I was saying about, I don't know if you heard the opening about being so creative, but yeah, you do everything, you know, anything you set your mind to, you will attempt.
You you know, and everybody acts like this is something that's so incredible, but really, like I said, I spent a ton of time throwing stuff at walls and, you know, pushing through a lot of frustration to get to this point. So it's you just basically have to commit and go all in and hope for the best, and know that you're going to make many, many mistakes, and then eventually you'll start producing something cool on a consistent basis. But I think that a lot of people expect hobbies to just happen. Like, oh, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do this craft and it's going to look like Pinterest and it's going to be great. And that's not how it works. The people on Pinterest work very hard to get to the point that they're at. So,
right.
you know, and that's not a sign of, hey, don't even bother trying. It's saying, hey, don't give up. You know, keep going until you can do those things.
Right. Don't give up, because when you're looking at something, like you said, like on Pinterest or anywhere, and you look at something that someone has made, you have to bear in mind, well, occasionally maybe it's the first try, but normally it's hours and hours of learning and trying and failing and pushing forward, and then finding something that you're maybe more comfortable with and continuing with that. And because it's creative, and it's something, being creative is really something that's meant to bring you joy and other people joy, not to, make you suffer.
Yeah, it's like that quote I sent you the other day via email, where Kurt Vonnegut had told, I think he was an archaeologist that he was working for when he was 15. The archaeologist asked him, what do you do? And he said, oh, I do this, that, the other thing. And the archaeologist, like, that's great. You're so interesting. That's really, that's really cool, is probably what he was saying now. And Kurt Vonnegut's like, no, I'm not good at any of them. And the archaeologist says, that doesn't matter. These are things that make you interesting. They taught you something, you've learned from them. They make you an interesting person. It doesn't matter that, you're not the best at it.
Right.
And he, I think the way he put it was, I went from somebody who was a failure at everything to somebody who does what he loved, or something to that effect.
Yes. Which is wonderful. I thought I had another question. Looking at my questions over here. Oh, you have a craft show coming up, right?
I do.
Where
Saturday.
Is that? Saturday.
Yep.
The 2nd, right? December 2nd.
Yes. Faith Presbyterian in Emmaus, Pennsylvania.
In Emmaus. So if anybody out there, I'll get this up on Thursday. So if anybody wants to go see her work in person, it's Faith Presbyterian Church in Emmaus.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, is there anything else you wanted to add or talk about?
I'm not sure. I think that we covered everything.
Okay. I'm sure there's probably something I'll think of, and maybe we can have you back for some more discussion. Maybe even about your book when that's done. But in the meantime, thank you very much for letting me interview you, and I'm sure we'll catch up soon. And
thanks for having me.
Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks.